Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Moose Podcast 190. I hope you had a really great week, great weekend, that you and yours are all safe and sound as we keep moving through these, very unique times. And we sit there and kind of reinvent some things we used to take for granted, and hopefully you're finding new things that you maybe took for granted that now you really enjoy. I want to thank you for tuning in. You guys have just been killer. I don't know if you're just stuck in your abode and you got nothing else to do but listen to Moose. But I'm grateful. The numbers keep climbing, and not just in the U.S. I am surprised when the stats come in. How many people around the world listen to what I have to say? I always wonder, do you guys just all speak English, or do you have this somehow translated? That really kind of fascinates me, but then again, that's my mind. But I want to thank you all for being such great supporters. Some good questions this week, which lead to the show. I also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera. It's bedfords.com. I know they have been cranking this last week. They have, as I mentioned before, got the D6 out to so many of us, and then as the batteries have come in and other supplies, and I know they are just busting. So, hey, get a chance, give them a call, go by the brick and mortar, check them out at bedford.com, and make sure we make that purchase. You use that special code, MOOSE, that's Moose. As well as if you are doing that stuff out of state, no sales tax for most of you, and of course, free shipping over $99. And thank them for all they're doing, because they've worked hard to keep everything going during these times, and they still make it possible for Moose to do the Moose Podcast. So thank you. Let's get right into this week's episode, Legacy Glass. Had a number of questions come in over the last couple of weeks after I did the Last Gear podcast, and a lot of them had to do with old lenses, what I call legacy glass. A lot of them were asking me if this, that, and the other is good, but the majority of you, Leslie especially, that was one, oh, Leslie, that was a long email, Lordy. Anyway, do I use legacy glass? Well, that's a really great question. If you peruse the website, you'll notice that when I do product shots and when I'm shooting a lot of the video, as in video of myself, of others, one lens that I use is definitely legacy glass, and that's the Nikkor 70-180 macro lens. This lens, it's old. How old? Oh, Lordy, I forget now. I had it on top of my head before I started. I should have written it down. It's film days, and I'm pretty sure it's around 85. Darn, now I can't remember. Anyway, so it's really old. It's so old that the autofocus, and it's not going to work with your current cameras, even though it has autofocus, it's really slow. It depends on a mechanism in the camera body. That's how old this lens is, which we don't have anymore. That's not the point. The 70-180 macro, because it goes to 1:1, 70-180, it's a true zoom, is just a blistering sharp lens that is so incredibly small. It's physically smaller than the 70-200 f4. It's 62 mil front element, and it is just absolutely a gorgeous lens. And it's a legacy lens. It's one I've had since it first came out. I put one in both the boys' locker and their bags because it's just a phenomenal lens. And for anything, which includes product shots when I'm photographing products in the studio to shooting video, it's just a great lens. Now, maybe not so much a legacy lens, but I think it is, and that happens to be the old 14-24 AFS lens. Now, it came out when the D3 first came out. So it's over 15 years old now. And I don't know, I know there's a standard for antique cars, and I know there's a standard for other antiques. I don't know if there is one for legacy lenses, but the 14 to 24, I still have mine, even though, I'll be honest, it's been replaced by the 14 to 30 for the Z. The Z 14 to 30 is just incredibly small, incredibly light. You can screw a filter onto the front of it, even though you got to take off the UV filter or else you have vignetting. But you can screw on a polarizer with that 14 to 30 on the Z, and away you go. So why would I have the 14 to 24 legacy lens? There's a lot of reasons. The first and foremost is, like I mentioned, it came out the D3. It was there for the D4, D4S, D3X, the D5, and now the D6. So for myself, just simply looking at edge-to-edge quality of the file, I mean, the first thing I do is I pull out that legacy glass, that 14 to 24, stuck it on that D6, shot my big toenail, and then I sat there and photographed a number of scenes, looking at some of the same parameters from the D3, D4, D5 to see what's happening. And that's how I know for myself, the D6, that sensor is putting out a better file than those previous cameras. What other legacy lenses are out there? Well, one that I find many people still use is the 60 macro. Now, the current 60 macro is small, light, really sharp 1:1. But before that, there was a 60 AF that's really popular. And before that was the 55 2.8 macro that you needed the M2 ring to go 1:1. Now, that 55 2.8 macro is a spectacular lens. Legacy glass that is definitely, you can pick them up relatively inexpensively nowadays used, and you're going to get an incredibly sharp photograph. Now, what about other lenses? 18-2.8 Nikkor, another old lens, same era as the 7180. Really beautiful lens, 72 front element. You can filter it, polarizer, really tack sharp, really physically small. That's why that lens is still in the locker, because we can use it in a cockpit and other places where you have a very small profile. It's a beautiful lens, beautiful lens. What about the other end of the spectrum, long lens? Well, there's this, that's where things change a lot. A good example, the 200 to 400 zoom. Great lens. Shot both versions for a long time. Jake still has the version 2. It's a great lens. It's tack sharp. And I guess, by scale, it's pretty much a legacy lens. It's a little bit newer than the 14-24. But now we have the 180 to 400. And this brings up really, I think, the heart of one of the questions. When do you know to stick with your old glass, or when do you move on to new glass? That's, that's a really great question. And there was when I got 9 ticks on my sheet. That question came in the last couple of weeks. Now, when do you know? You're really asking the wrong person. I'm here to tell you, right? Because for a number of reasons. One, I just love lenses. I'm sitting here unpacking my collection of old stuff. I can see how many lenses I have in the collection, which I don't use. I don't shoot. They're just old classic, chrome barrel, old lenses, stuff like that. So I love glass. I just love that stuff. But how would you know? Well, I can only tell you my parameters. And first and foremost, looking at that 200 to 400 and the 180 to 400. I've mentioned this many times. On the website, you saw how I hemmed and hawed and said I was not going to get that 180 to 400. It was a lot of money. The 200 400 is what I paid for. It makes money. I saw how little I used it. I got that lens. I saw that built-in teleconverter. I saw how easy it was to, go back and forth from 180 to 400 to 560 and back. Critters couldn't see me do anything. Now on the D6, when you toggle that built-in teleconverter, you see the word TC in the bottom right corner, which makes the lens even sweeter. It's sharp. It focuses really close. I bought it. Okay. Was there any good reason for it? Well, first and foremost, I'm going to have to say, because it was simple. It just made shooting easy. I didn't have to sit there and carry that teleconverter in my pocket. I didn't have to worry about scaring off a critter. I didn't have to worry about missing a picture. It just made photography with that lens so much easier. With the D6, D5, it's so well balanced. 200, 400 is just a tad off, but this is so dead on. So in that particular example, boom. If I were to take another example, and let's say the old 800 5.6 EDIF lens versus the new one, to me, there's no comparison. The old one didn't have autofocus, didn't focus as close. Boom, right off the bat, wouldn't do that. What if you have, and there's six people asked, well, what about the 300 2.8 autofocus lens, AFS, VR2 versus the 120 to 300 2.8? Wow. That was a really good question. And I have to be honest, I don't have that answer because I've not shot the new 120 to 300. I hear from people who I really trust. It's spectacular. If you trust that stuff on the testing people do, which I always, a lab is never the same as real world. You just look at, COVID. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. You just have to realize that lens with that flexibility and that package, flexibility is something that's really hard to get. And when you can pay for it and have it like that, I just cannot help but think, if you need that 300 2.8 focal length, you need 120 or anywhere in between, and you are, doing basketball, baseball, football, any kind of sports, I would think that lens would just be a slam dunk for you. Seriously, it just, wow. And then, there is the price. And that's the flip side to all of this, right? Legacy glass is going to cost a whole lot less, vast majority of the time, compared to new stuff. So which do you go with? If you're fortunate like myself to be in the business, then it takes a little bit of the sting out of it because you can write it off, depreciate it over the years, blah, blah, blah. If not, that's a solid hit. So you got to ask yourself, okay, can I get the Legacy glass and still have money to go over and do my trips and shoot and come back with results that, can make that beautiful 24x30? Or do I need to save extra few pennies so I can still buy that new lens, still take that trip, and now make that 24-30? Now, a lot of people will go, well, I don't know that. I don't have that lens. How would I know that? That's when you need to rent. And you got to remember, when you rent, you make sure you have time to shoot with it. So I really sincerely think you should rent it so you have it on a Friday. Shoot it over the weekend, during the week. Mess with it at your home. Take different pictures. Shoot again the next weekend. Plan a real good, solid, push that lens to its limit kind of shoot. And then return that following Monday. Most places give you a discount for that extra time. Take advantage of it. Make sure it's the lens you want or you don't want. That's really the best answer. And you got to understand that the biggest variable in all of this, be it a legacy piece of glass, a brand new glass, the biggest variable is you and your photography. What is going to work best for your visual storytelling? That's why manufacturers make so many choices, is because we're all so different. And what might work for one person might not work for another person, even though you're looking at the same subject. And that's what's so great about photography. So I know you can get wrapped up in, glass. I know I get wrapped up in glass, but you got to sit there and think about it. Legacy glass, brand new glass, they're all tools. Find the tool that allows you to be you, to tell your story visually, and you will find the best piece of equipment for your camera bag. I hope you guys have a great week. Lots coming up. The summer is here. Birds are nesting. It's been great out there. I hope that every time you go shooting, you remember to make every click your story.